Sup, my fellow gamers, this is Gamer with Sean, and welcome. And I may sound a little off because my voice is very bad because I'm still a little bit sick. Information on that: I was in the hospital the other day because a bunch of crap happened the other day. I threw up and got sick, but there was blood out of my throat. It's something that y'all need to know, unless it gets worse throughout. But anyways, I wanted to do something since I recently announced that the 22nd album would be hitting, and I know that I have been up to, from the first one to Jinjitsu was my last album I did. I figured I might as well go take a look at some of the last records, and we do it again. So we're just going to rank these by my personal opinion. You guys might have your own personal opinion of them. I have mine. Per se, the number one spot might upset some people. I hope not. And yeah, this is also a new mic, so it's kind of cool that you get to see me with a new mic. I don't know, I hate that there's a bunch of cords and crap in the way. Pardon that, please. But yeah, let's get right on into this with number 21. Alright, number 21 was actually not a very hard choice to do, but I put Frostbite as the least lucky album. I remember sitting and recording this and how happy I was, but the aftermath of it, I think, was horrific, because it was just basically a reskin of the previous albums that came after and before this. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was received quite well. It very much was a good received record, but still, in my opinion, it didn't exactly go up to par when albums were coming to be a thing. And my 21st studio album, this was my 11th studio album, my very first of this year as well. It came out, I think, on January 4th. It was supposed to come out January 21st, but it was like, oh, no, I'm going to release it now. Next album is really interesting, but Haunted in the Dark is hands down the next album. It's got the similar basis as Frostbite. It's literally the exact same formula as Frostbite and feels the same as Frostbite. It doesn't sound very good. The songs on here, I think, needed a bit more work. It was one of the first albums to have more than 3 songs on it that were 3 minutes long. I mean, in a long time. I mean, this came out, I think, right after Down to Hell, and Down to Hell was a huge success of an album, and this album came out, and then, you have those people who are like, we didn't like this album, so it's gonna have to sit at number 20, because I'm not a big fan of it, and neither are some other people, so let's get right on to it. The next album that I have to completely disintegrate, that everyone would put, is Lord of Light, my 6th studio album. I came off the trail with a popular album. Into the Night had just wrapped up, and I had just released it. However, though, I feel like this album needed more work put into it. It was literally not a very long album either, and it wasn't a very good, cohesive album. I mean, the songs were okay. The only single that was off of it was Metallic Repair, which I played in my live performance, which we'll get more onto that in detail as to what I'm able to do now. The fact that I have newer equipment, I can actually do some stuff that, I wasn't capable of doing. So yeah, I personally say this one has to rank as one of the number of least ones. And coming into the next spot, we have Howling at the Moon. Howling at the Moon was the album that I really thought would have to be made for Down to Hell to come out. And it was already planned after Down to Hell was planned, but I already started work on this before I even did a Down to Hell song. So I decided we're going to go with Down to Hell after we did Howling at the Moon, and I think it was good for Down to Hell, because if this had came after, we probably wouldn't have gotten success on the album that came after which was the X Factor that came after Haunted in the Dark. I think that would have made the album so much better if this one had never existed. Now, the reason I do not like it is because of the fact that only three songs, the first three songs are brand new. The others were actually from the Age of the Darkness recording sessions and the Dark Side of Death recording sessions, which more on those as developed. Those were from the sessions of those two albums, the double album that came in the same month. That album was a double album because there was 5 songs on each record, and they formed into the masterpiece that many people consider. But yeah, next album for me is actually Dark Side of Death. I didn't like the second part of the double album. I did. And it's definitely not way better than Age of the Darkness was, or how this or the next album is. Again, just not being very good. I mean, I recorded this at a time where I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. I was starting to run out of ideas when I recorded this, but then I did it, and I was like, well, what am I doing? This album remained a key moment after, but this was one of the last albums I did. Definitely also the first album to feature, like, official cover art finally. Like, I had pictures taken of me for the first 7, and then after that, it turned into a trend where it was now always an album cover, which makes everything a lot better, in my opinion. It makes the albums more received better as well. Definitely have to say Modern War was a very hard song. Well, was already written, like, literally during when I wrapped up Lord of Light. That song was already wrapped up and ready to go. It was actually gonna be, I think, Into the Night's recording stages. I think it was supposed to be in those stages. It was not. But, it's okay to me, and per se, I think it was a good album on its own right. So, that's what I think. Next album should come to no surprise. It is Life is a Party. At this time period, this was the album that came out right before The Final Frontier debuted. And, I was sick when recording this, so it may not sound good for that reason, too. Definitely will not re-record it like I've done to some of the other songs. I will not be re-recording this ever. I do not ever plan to do so again. And it's an album that I think I wanted more people to forget than remember. I remember the extra hype I developed on it on social media, on Snapchat and Facebook, and the channel's discussion board. I remember how ecstatic I was, but when the album came out, I think it wasn't exactly cohesive to what fans would want it, and turned out to be a okay album. It was received well, but I mean, not well enough than the albums that came before, the album that came after, which was The Final Frontier. The next album, I have to say, is The X Factor. It's not a dark album necessarily, but The X Factor was a very weird album for me to make. I don't know what to say about it. It wasn't the best album at all to be received at all, and I really did not like this album's tone or depth that it took. I wish this album would have been received a bit better than the last one, but it was, I think, a 30-minute album, if not 20-something minutes. But, I mean, it was still a bad album, and it did not get received well at all. And like I stated before, I'll say it again, it's an album I really want y'all to forget is The X Factor. But, I mean, many people still have feelings. Some people even stated it's one of their favorites, which I'm like, that's good. That'll be literally your favorite album. But I don't think it's my favorite. I'm just saying. I don't think it's my number one. So, number 15 is definitely the place for it. Coming in at number 14, I think number 14 was a very hard decision for me, but Into the Night had to go into it. Let me state this. Into the Night's not a bad album at all, and it contains one of my most scariest songs in the history of this channel in general. Scream and Terror is the 10-minute long Halloween fanatic of a track, and in my opinion, that song brought so much controversy to it as well. I remember people telling each other that the song was really dark, and that was actually the last song I recorded with GroovePad until the whole Lost in Space album, which more to that in a little bit. I don't think this album's that bad. It definitely got received well, but Scream & Terror is one of the most iconic songs in the channel. And the recording process of it and the writing process of that took a long time to do because I had so many people doing the voice work at the opening sections of it, and the screams were actually provided by a friend of mine. In my opinion, makes it a lot more cooler than that, and that's why number 14 is this album, Into the Night. Number 13. Hold on. Number 13 was a very hard decision, but Civil War take that spot. I did not mind Civil War that much. Civil War was a very good album in my history lineup. My second to last album before Lost in Space, which sadly Lost in Space was the last full-length album I made. It wasn't the last set of music I made, though. I made singles after that with the Chaotic Gamer diss track and the Jingle Bell Rock parody COVID edition. But this, on the other hand, came out in a time when System of a Down had just released their 2 new songs, Protect the Land and Genocidal Humanoids. This album was more based on their stuff. Some of it was riffs from them, and some of it was just me messing around with drop C tunings and standard tunings. I remember recording this, and I was actually excited at first to release it, and then after I released it, I was like, what the heck did I do doing this? I didn't like the record after it was all said and done. It could have been a bit better, in my opinion. That's all I'm saying. Coming in at number 12, it was very hard for me to come up with the number 12 spot, but it had to be in album, and I chose Lost in Space. Lost in Space remains the latest Groovehead album I'd ever do, and it still is not. I've never released a Groovehead album after this. Lost in Space was already done. It was released in November, like really early December. But the actual album itself was recorded, funny enough, in July. Well, the first 3 songs were recorded in July, and I had originally planned this album would have been released probably in July, just with a different name and definitely a different background. And remember, July was right. This was before even Age of the Darkness was an album or a thing. And in my opinion, based on all of our rankings here, Lost in Space is a very good album to have as a number 12. And, it's not a bad album at all. I love every song on this record. And in my opinion, the track Boy, which is a 48-second, it's obviously been a staple intro for some occasions on the channel. And it's been known as one of the best intro songs of the time. Now, it would have been originally the intro of it, and the Final Frontiers, the track, would have been after that. But nah, I chose an interesting opening, and the Final Frontier was the opening track. But, some albums did good, and then after that, everything was all good and happy dandy, so we'll go on. Next up is Age of the Darkness. My 7th studio album. There's not much to say about it. It's the first half of the Death albums, I guess, because both, I think, would feature Death and some names on both. This album was released in a bad time as well, and like the first album, it was released in a very bad timing. It was released during my depression time at that time period, which, sad fact there, that was true. I remember recording the record, and I was actually very ecstatic about it at first, and when it was released, it was open to very good reviews. The song Live Quick remains one of the most popular songs from this record. And also in general, it remains a song, and I played it in the live performance, and again, that was a song people were hyped about when I played it. But yeah, I think Age of the Darkness remains a very good album in my history, and it definitely is a staple to what my channel represents. But yeah, now we're going to the top 10, and now we're going to start the top 10 with Down to Hell. Wow, I'm shocked that I put Down to Hell as number 10. Everyone's probably going to be like, why do you put this at number 10? I loved recording this record, and I love this record. I swear to God, I love it. And it features the current longest song to date, which is that 12-minute, 22-second masterpiece, Black Isolated Clouds. And that song in general has 3 core parts to it. The beginning, the breakdown, and then the very end where it closes all out in the interesting manner it does. God, I hate being sick. I put Down to Hell as number 10. There was actually going to be a sequel to Frostbite as well that came right after this, but that never happened. Which, I don't know if I'll ever make an album sequel, like one album that contains the same title, just 2 at the end of it. If Frostbite had done well at the time stage it was, that would have happened, and Frostbite 2 would have been the album that came after this. But, I mean, you know, it didn't do well, so we're just going to forget about that. Coming in at number 9 is a very hard choice. I'm not going to lie, Broken Life takes that spot for me. Okay, yeah, a GroovePad album takes number 9 when I still have one more record that I did with my own self. Yeah, number 9, Broken Life. Let me explain. Broken Life, I like Broken Life. Good album, good songs, good writing into it. Definitely was the last full-length dubstep album I did until Lost in Space came out 6 albums later. Yeah, that's right. It took 6 more albums to do a full-blown GroovePad album after this, because GroovePad stopped working, and then I couldn't make any new music out of it, so sadly this remains the last album I did featuring that software. And you know, I wish it was a better received record than it was, or is, to y'all at least. It may have been received well by y'all. It definitely was well received, and still remains, again, a very iconic album. Coming in at number 8 was actually very hard to decide, but Into the Wilderness was. Into the Wilderness, very well made album, hands down. I love this album. Everything about it is good. Everything this album represents is good. Hold on. Ugh. Everything this album is and represents is hands down amazing, and truly is an artwork too. I mean, look at the artwork. It is so peaceful, and it's the first album to actually not feature many heavy metal music in this. I wanted to take it into a different turn, because I had finished Frostbite, and after the poor reception of it, I thought it was time, maybe it's time for a peaceful album, which, luckily enough, the 22nd studio album I'll be doing is more peaceful on length to that, more in depth as that, because I'll announce some of the music that'll be on it. But, I mean, I have to put it at number 8, but, I mean, it's still an amazing album, hands down. From here on in, all the albums are going to be amazing. I just rank them in the spot I do. I might get so much shame for this, but the next album I have to put is The Final Frontier. Okay, The Final Frontier remains an amazing album in my history, the longest album to date in general, at a 52-minute length, which is very long for an album. 13 songs were recorded for this, which, again, is mind-blown. And there is one other track that would have made the cut, but it didn't due to its, just in my opinion, its sad reception, and I might release it. I don't know. Probably not. Just so don't get your hopes up. But if I do, I do. And if I don't, I don't. So it's that then. Number 7, I think The Final Frontier does belong here. Because, I mean, Final Frontier is not a good album necessarily, but it isn't a bad album either. I like The Final Frontier's music and theme to it. It is hands down an awesome metal record. And it's got some of my favorite songs out of the whole my discography. And The Final Frontier is, again, the longest record to ever debut on the channel, and probably will be the longest record ever to debut, but I don't know. Because with the upcoming 22nd and 23rd album, which the 23rd album, 15 tracks, covering most of Iron Maiden material. Iron Maiden material on that album will be very long, like 10 minutes, like maybe I think like at least 3, 4, 10-minute tracks. That's already 40 minutes, and it's a 15-song album, so that album's probably going to get to the hour mark, like Final Frontier could have done if I had released the other 2 songs, but I didn't. Number 6, okay. First of all, I get shame for this, but number 6 is Slice and Rap. No offense to Slice and Rap. Slice and Rap is a very true, believed album. And it's got so much passion involved into it. You know, if I ask for a better album, this one is most likely going to be received the best out of any of my albums in history. Slice and Rap is a truly amazing album and features one of my favorite songs, Uplift Me to the Heavens, and the most popular song, I Wanna Do. This album was not a bad album at all, and I think that this was the best follow-up album I did, because it followed the first album, which I wanted it to achieve a similar feeling, and it actually, I think, got well received more than the original album did. But I don't know, but I think that's gotta be that one. Number 5 is Reelect the Dead. Reelect the Dead is an amazing album, and my singing voice on it was very interesting as well. I took a step back from metal and did more of a rockish alternative feel to it, and it actually did receive really well. It received definitely better than the Final Frontier did, that's for sure. But I think number 5, Reelect the Dead, it belongs there. Yeah, and we're also starting our top 5, so here we go. Coming in at number 4 is going to annoy so many people. And I know this, but it is the very first album, Gaming with Rappers. I'm sorry, but I can't go wrong with the first album. It is the best album ever made in my life, but it could have been better. And I say this because this album's not all that bad. It isn't bad at all. I mean, it still belongs in my family of records I've done or is. Make It Burn, the first song ever recorded by me, is an amazing masterpiece, and it still remains one of the greatest songs I ever released of all time. Coming in at number 3 was very hard to decipher, but Aftermath of War, The Beginning of Life. I loved this album, but the recording of it was actually hard to do. At least some songs, the last 2 were actually very hard to record because my voice actually started to strain out during that album's recording process. It very much hurt, and it hurts when you have to sing like that on another record. But, I mean, the key song on here, in my opinion, is Beethoven's Guns. I mean, it's a truly amazing song, and just it makes the album so much better. And I think starts off one of the second half. The Satara Bad starts off the second half of it, which, again, is an amazing starting for the other half of it. Number 2 is Dark Awakening. Not too surprised on this one. Dark Awakening was, hands down, one of the best albums of GroovePad era I did. Second to last GroovePad album, obviously, but I mean, after this album finished, I didn't do another album until a month later, which was, again, this came after a week right after Slice and Rap's release, which, again, the swiftness. I released the first song, and actually the first song was recorded right after Slice and Rap all was uploaded. That's right. But, again, it's a truly amazing album. The title track, hands down, the best song I've ever made is that title track, Dark Awakening. And Tough Luck, I think is the name of the track, was hands down an amazing track, and I loved playing it. And most of the live performance I did was from this album. Slice and Rap and Gaming with Rappers were the 3 main albums that made to the live performance that you guys saw earlier in the beginning of the year. Which, little fun fact for y'all right there. However, my number 1 album is Jinjitsu, my most recent release ever. Okay, Jinjitsu was the hardest record to record. Let me explain the reason behind that. All of the songs were recorded in one sitting, one take Timmy's. Literally, one takes for each and every one. I didn't have to re-record any of these songs. All it took was one take and the songs were ready to go. When you're sitting in a room for 30 minutes singing the life out of your voice, I almost threw up actually on the last song. Not gonna lie, I literally almost threw up on the last song that I recorded, which was Viva La Victoria. Was the last song I recorded for the record, and the last song, unfortunately, I recorded ever. This album hurt my voice. I definitely had a sore throat after that. Like, only for that day, though. I didn't have a sore throat the next day, but it hurt to record that album. And Stratego is the best opening song. Not many people get to hear it, though, because it's blocked, apparently, in some countries. I'm not sure why that is, but I'm still working on trying to fix that. But, I mean, this an amazing album, and definitely a way that closes the first half of 2021's albums in general. And I think this was released in August. I don't know. I think it was released back in August, but we will have to look and see. So let me know, guys, what is your favorite album? And before we get started on that, want to talk about the newest record that'll be released to worldwide. And that album is Peace. The next upcoming album is Peace. It's going to be a mainly Simon & Garfunkel-ish album. It's going to be very peaceful, so if y'all like very nice, calm music, then this album will be for you, because that's what this album's going to be. I will see y'all, though, in the next one. Hope you guys enjoy it. And by the way, I'm getting new LED strips and a new editing software, so y'all are going to enjoy the heck out of my new setup now. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye, guys. Enjoy.